Good morning. I'm so hungry, but I am really in the mood to talk about this. Like, for some reason, despite being so hungry, I feel like I have energy to talk about this. I was sitting on the couch and I've been thinking about this for a while. And if you've been following my channel, I've been thinking a lot about relationships, dynamics, codependency, and I kind of came upon like a new thesis of mine, or hypothetical perhaps. And it's backed by some books I was listening to. I've been listening to ever since my Audible subscription got canceled. It's too expensive. Why don't zebras get ulcers? Or whatever it's called. And it's talking about all the different stressors that humans have put ourselves through in the way that we've formed the society that, our bodies are reacting in biologically natural ways. Like, our bodies weren't designed to be put under prolonged stress, only temporary stress. And then when you prolong the social or physical stressors, it affects you in XYZ way. And I got to the chapter that was about growth, like kids and like childhood development and human growth hormone. And it cited a couple different studies and examples of how physical touch is basically, most definitely, necessary. It's necessary for human growth to an extent that I did not realize, which is informing the way I look at life and relationships. So I'll lay out a couple of the examples. Human growth hormone will become less productive, or the receptors will become less active, less able to receive it and then use it if a child is not getting enough touch. An example of this is a child had low levels of human growth hormone. When he went into the hospital, he got very attached to one of the nurses, and then over the course of, I think it was like 3 weeks or whatever, maybe 5 weeks, his human growth hormone went up. His levels went up despite eating less calories than he was at home. When the nurse went away for vacation for 3 weeks, his human growth hormone levels went down. And when she came back, they went back up. Diet changed, diet the same in the hospital, but different, less calories than at home. Same environment. Only difference, or what do they call it, variable, would be this nurse. Another example is this guy. He wanted to find out what the humans' natural languages. So he stole a bunch of infants, put them in rooms where they were being cared for but having minimal contact with humans. Like, they were being fed and watered, but they weren't being touched. They weren't being looked after in that way. And they were like, oh, it's going to be Hebrew, it's going to be this is going to be the natural language that arises. Crazy. And guess what? They all died. The children literally died. They died from lack of human, proprioception. Wouldn't proprioception be touching yourself? Lack of human touch, whatever. Same thing happens with baby rats. They've tried mimicking all the different things that a mother would provide baby rats, whether it's the smell, giving them the right food, mimicking the mom's noises, all that stuff. But it isn't until you mimic the licking and touching that a mother rat does to her babies do the babies survive. So I was like, damn, obviously I know touch is important. Everyone says that having sex is good for your health and lower stress and all that stuff. But this book was positioning the lack of touch as a stressor. A stressor could be you're not getting something you need, or you're getting too much of something that's hurtful, including touch, which, like I said, I grew up knowing that touch is important, but so many adults live alone, don't have partners, and aren't getting that. And I did not realize that you can literally cause childhood dwarfism by locking them in a closet. That's it's amazing. It's also insane. And so I'm like, wow, as children, you have to have it. It is a non-negotiable. You have to have it to grow. To literally grow and live, you have to have it. And I was like, that was really informing my thought process. Because although adults and people past when they've like started growing, maybe, I don't know, maybe you stop having to have touch or you'll die, like, or stop growing by the time you're like 14 or 13, like when you're like grown enough, maybe more like 15 or 16. But I was like, I haven't done the research for this, but I don't think that need for touch ever goes away. And I mean a need, not like a desire, a need like food and water. Like food, water, shelter, touch. And obviously, like, as you get older, you technically don't have to have it because there are recluses, people who live in the woods by themselves, all that stuff. But I was kind of thinking about it in terms of like, if you're ADHD and you've never known, and you've gone your whole life having trouble sticking to one task, following a conversation, communication, whatever. And then you go to a party and you do coke. And you're like, wow, I could really sit down and study right now. Like, you don't know how bad it is until you're getting to that baseline. Same with any mental disorder, or like maybe you're in a bad relationship and you get out of it and you didn't realize how bad it was until you're out of it. So I'm like, is that the life that so much of us are living? Like, because we tend to, or at least from my perspective, contribute the intensity, the highs and lows of a relationship solely to the relationship. Let's say you have family and you have friends and all that good stuff, and you get into a relationship and it feels really good and really intense, and you're holding hands and you're having sex and you're doing things together, and then you break up and it's like such a steep drop off of happiness and well-being. And we contribute those feelings to the relationship because it seems to be the relationship causing it. I am starting to shift my perspective to it is not solely the cause. It's the relationship. No, it's the lack of basic touch in your everyday life that allows for the relationship to cause the intensity of feelings. Because you might have friends and family, but that does not mean that you're holding hands, playing around, wrestling, getting hugs, like enough or at all. A lot of people don't like being touched. And that's a whole nother thing. A lot of people have friends where it's like, don't hug me. So just because you have friends and just because you have a community does not mean that you're being touched. And so I was like, with the kind of like ADHD metaphor and comparing it to touch, like it seems to me that the intensity through which a relationship can be perceived is very much related to how much our base need of touch is getting met in our daily lives. And I really related this back to my own experience because I was in a relationship, not this past one, but the one before that. And, it was okay, And then I got to my job at a farm and one of my best friends was coming to hang out with me. And when she got there, I stopped needing to rely on my boyfriend at the time. She was fulfilling my need for touch. We were holding hands, cuddling, we're good friends. Like, I don't know how to explain it if you think that's kind of sus, but that's just how we are. And I'm really grateful that we have that kind of relationship. And so I was like, me and my ex, we would fight a lot already. So I was like, well, I really now don't even need to rely on this person for any sort of connection, especially because they're not even here to provide me any touch. And I was getting that sort of base level need met. And then I compare that to my most recent relationship where I was in a foreign country taking care of someone who does not even like hugging her own children. 5 weeks, almost no human contact, like physical human touching. And the way that I latched on to the very first person who I felt a connection with, I feel like says a lot. Especially now looking back on it and how I'm living my life now, I'm making an active and asserted effort to like be hugged and like hang out with my little brother and like wrestle and all that stuff. Because like touching your dogs and petting your dogs, that's great. But I think touch it from a human's different. And I guess I'm just really realizing that, oh, my thesis. I think codependency is not just a taught behavior, but a behavior that arises out of scarcity of touch. Like, it makes so much more sense to try to be emotionally manipulative and controlling and base your self-worth off of the one person who is providing you that base need, as opposed to if you're getting that base need or maybe more met by your friends and family, where you're very close to them, hugging, loving, cuddling. Oh, alarm going off. Then when another person comes in, I feel like not only are the highs and lows going to be less intense, but you're going to have your needs already met. You won't have to feel like you need to control that person, because it's not like a matter of like low-key survival. I just find it all very interesting. I did not realize how imperative touch is, like, for a developing child. And I think that, like I said, continues into adulthood in a way that is not recognized. Because, like I said, we all talk about like, oh, the benefits of it, but we are not looking at it of like, no, you, to thrive, to be healthy, like, you really need it. So I've been exploring that. Like I said, reaching out to my family, all that stuff. And I do feel like the more I connect with my family physically, the less I need to, the less I feel compelled to like control another person, or to like find a partner and like make sure that like they're not going to leave me, or like that they're going to like behave the way I want to. Because like I said, I really think codependency is not just a learned behavior, but a behavior, like an adaptive behavior for survival that arises out of scarcity. And I think that's really radical to say. And I also think I'm right. I think I'm right. Because codependency tends to be looked at in this view of like, oh, you have a problem. Like, this behavior is sick and toxic. Like, you need help. Which, like, yes, but like, I feel like it's not touched on how much, if it's possible, to alleviate that behavior through just getting the touch need met. And I'm not saying that like that gives you free range to like be codependent and toxic and act however you want, like, if you can't get that met. And it's interesting because also my partner at the time, who I became really codependent on, you know, in my opinion, partially arisen from the fact that I was isolated. I suspect it was also not getting that sort of touch. His parents aren't around, his family's not around, and I don't think he really acts that way with, you know, his friends or his bosses or his coworkers. A little bit here and there, but it definitely feels like a key factor in predicting how much of those like maladaptive behaviors are externalized. Yeah, I'm talking in circles at this point, so I'm done.